you want to be a champion?
No, I agree. But that Dragon side's a full
back,
strength.
ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Glenn's got stuck in the corner over there chatting away. Caught you off guard there, mate. It's all good. Love it. Yeah, welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Supercoach Tragics podcast. I'm your host, Dan, coach of Badonkadonk. With me tonight, as per usual, Glenn from Tigers for Life, mate. How you been?
Yeah, good, mate. Really good. Exciting to have a bit of football this weekend, wasn't it? Watch a few of the players getting around.
Yeah, it was a lot of attack, which was really good. There's a lot of big scores out there, some big blowouts, which was good to see some points getting scored. But yeah, definitely a few players there that are knocking on the door for some of these round one starting positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like watching the Warriors game. I thought there was a bit of joy in that game with Metcalf and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and even the Tigers game here, watching Lockie Galvin and Fainu boys play. Yeah, it was a bit over the weekend to like, and the games are playing now. I'll watch later on, but good to see that some plays in that one as well from the Dragons.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love that how they got the KO minis, because I'm a very busy person, so I don't get to watch it. So I get to watch the mini KO episodes just to get a bit of a grasp on what happened in the game. So I got to do some catching up. I'm playing cricket all day, so I'm going to catch up to some of those from today's games. All right, let's get started. First up, guys, I'd like to thank our partners for this year. They're offering us some great prizes for our overall group. The prizes are: first place will receive $500 cash and the Supercoach Champions ring. So if you want one of these bad boy rings for yourself or one of the or for your private head-to-head league, just visit www.supercoachchampion.com and use code TRAGICS25 to receive a 10% discount. Second place will get $100 cash as well. And third prize will receive $50. And don't forget, the highest individual round score of the year will also take home $100 cash. Jump into the league, guys. The league code is 208753. And none of this would have been possible without our amazing partners, Kalahani and Plus Fitness Blacksland. Amazing people there. Like I said, we mentioned it before. If you jump in, if you live around the Blacksland area, go pop in and say hello. Carly's an amazing person there. I've spoken to her a few times on email. Very good person. Great family. Great non-judgmental gym as well. What I get a judgment of when I look at all the Instagram posts. So, yeah, jump in there. Have go there, join up, get some fit. That's why you can see my beer gut here is a bit out of whack right now, and that's probably why I can't go all the way to Blackburn to live in Canberra. So, love it.
I train there, mate, and it's I've trained in a lot of gyms in my life, and I've never been one like this. Not only is it such a family-friendly, orientated place, it is just they get behind everything in our local community, and they have so many things going for people that are there, as well as for new members. And as for Mel from Kalahani, she's just one of a million, bro. If I was down in the trenches, mate, she's the woman I'd want on hand. She's just an incredible lady.
Yeah, I think like the organisation itself, Kalahani, does some amazing things, working with helping people with disability get NDIS access, giving that disability support, mental health support as well. So great way great group of people there as well doing amazing work. So, and
they're both supporters of the Leg Up Project.
Yes, the Leg Up Project also does amazing work as well. So to be a partner of the Leg Up Project itself, you'd have to be a pretty good person, you gotta think. So awesome. All right, let's start tonight. We'll start with our first team. Glenn, Parramatta Eels, mate. I'll start with the predicted lineup here. So I think someone put their hat in the ring for that number 1 jersey. But we'll start with the team we've got here. So they're looking at Gutho's replacement, number 1, Zaya Iongi, the likely replacement there for Gutho. On the wing, we've got Bailey Simonson with Will Panasini and Zach Lomax in the centres. And with Addo Carr suspended the first, I think it was 5 rounds, I'm pretty sure, Sean Russell should take that spot. So in the halves, we have Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses. So hopefully their combination gets a bit better again after that injury to Mitch Moses there. Halted their year last year. Got Joey Offer and Gowie in at number 8. Brendan Hands at number 9 with Junior Paul at number 10. Looking like Kalmark Tuolungi and Bryce Cartwright will be on the edge spots with a few injuries in the back line there. A guy that I really like this year, Jermaine Hopgood at number 13. Joey Lustig backing up at hooker there at number 14 with Madison, Williams, and Guimar looking at taking the last bench spot there. What are your thoughts on this one, Glenn?
Yeah, I definitely think that you're pretty much on the money there with the team. I really like starting with Isaiah Longy. I thought he wasn't great, but he was good. I like the little deft pass on the right. He put that try in for his winger. It was a nice little play there. I've actually got Longy. I just see the value there, points per dollar. But as I told you, I've invested that into my backs and my second row. It enabled me to do that. I'm running in 2 fullbacks instead of 3 like everyone else to give more depth to my overall side. There's a few players of interest there, though. Zach Lomax will goal kick. He'll take that off Moses. So that's an issue. Dylan Brown at 651, I don't hate either, and he plays right through. He's got 1 bye in round 8, but he plays round 12. And then, of course, Tuolagi. Hands, I'm not sure about. There's a few people I've got seeing Hands in the side. I just don't know if I like that. He won't play 80 with Lustig on the bench, and there's even a scenario where Lustig could start. I mean, it's a good team. It'll be interesting to see how they play with Moses and Brown in there. I think Brown gets more ball. I just think the 2 halves step up with Gutherson out. Gutherson used to take a lot of ball, bro.
He did, and I only kind of didn't overplay his hand in the trial matches, so he wasn't really getting as involved as what a Guther would normally do. So, I mean, there's more work involved for the halves, so that could be some good things there. So, I was a little bit turned off on Dylan Brown just because looking at some of the stats from last year. I wasn't overly impressed, but also interpreting that as like he had to step up into the halfback role, which everyone, including myself, was certain that was going to increase his output. And it didn't. It actually made it worse. And I had a little talk with the off the bench boys the other night about it. And I think when Brown had to fill in for a game or 2, he's brilliant. He doesn't need to change his whole playing style. But when he found out he had to play hard for the rest of the season, he had to change his whole playing style, and it actually affected his output. So I think whenever Moses goes down halfway through a game, that second half, he'll just boost his Supercoach score because he knows it's over, like, in the end of this game. But with Moses back, I think I can see some improvements on him this year. I think the trial game showed some improvements there as well. So,
yeah, I don't like him playing 7 or on the right, but I definitely do like him as a 6 on the left with Mitchell Moses in the side. However, there's a couple out there like the Metcalf, Lockie Galvin, and of course the old favourite Munster. So there are a few options this year. Last year there wasn't a lot of love from in the 5'8" spot. This year there's a bit more options.
Yeah, it's still one of the harder positions to pick your 5'8", I reckon. It's still one of the harder ones, but it definitely has improved from last year. I remember doing drafts last year, and I had to pick at 5'8" almost straight away. Otherwise, you're left with the duds. But this year, you can hold back a little bit and pick up a still reasonable 5'8". So a bit more options, hopefully. So, yeah. Kelmar, Tuolungi there. Do we know how long Lane's out for? I think it was a pretty long-term injury from memory. So I think Kelmar might be a nice little. I know that he won't be a pod because a lot of people on him because he's nice and cheap. But Kelmar, that edge spot there outside either Moses or Dylan Brown is a very handy little edge spot.
Yeah, it's definitely got upside. At points per dollar, it definitely makes sense. I don't hate Tuolungi at all. You know, he's showing promise. He runs nice lines. And what's his price point? 300 and something, isn't it?
Yeah, 338, I think it is from memory.
Yeah, 338. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I mean, even Bryce outside of Moses, you know, he's actually been playing some good football. He's like him and Fafita have both played more tougher football the last couple of years. We've we've always known they've had the upside with the offloads and the stepping and all the passing and that kind of stuff. But they've actually played some tough football with good base. So, both the second rowers there. And, of course, Hopgood, I just wonder about his minutes, Hopgood. To be fair, he was carrying injury last year, but with that bench, Madison could come in at lock and he could push into the front row when Paulo goes off. So there is that option. I do like him as well.
Yeah, but you're looking at the bench all up, it's scary because Maddo, you can play in the middle, but you can play on the edge. Jack Williams, he's a really good 13 as well at lock. You know what I mean? That's what his main job is in 13, so he can play in the middle as well. And Guima is another edge player as well. He's another second rower. So that whole bench. But I think what Arthur does, Arthur is very good at upskilling his edge players to become middles as well. Like you see Lane in the middle, you see Maddo, who was one of the best edges in the comp, is now very versatile by playing in 13. So with him, he'll come on in 20 minutes after the game starts and then replay the rest of the game. But I'm not sure about how he's a good value, Madison, I think, himself. He's around the
Yeah, absolutely. He'll play 50, 55 minutes for sure. At his price point, he makes sense. I think that Tuolagi and Cartwright will play 80. I think Hopgood will go into the front row when Paulo comes off and Madison will come into the lock position. That's how I see it playing out.
Yeah, I like that. In the front row, you think Hopgood replaces Paulo, and then when Paulo comes back on the last 15 or whatever, 20 minutes, Hopgood comes off and gets the rest of the game.
Yeah, I reckon he'll still get...
That could see him getting 60 minutes, which I think is a good enough score.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, his points per minute is really good. His work rate's great. And he's also got the ceiling, he offloads, he's a try scorer. He's got all the attributes as a super coach gun, and we've all owned him for that reason in the past. He's definitely... What's his price point, Dan?
He's at 657.
Yeah, so he's priced at like a 65 average, right? Which is about what I reckon he gets pretty consistently each game.
Yeah.
And then anything on that, offload, try assist, any of those things, is a bonus.
Yeah. All right. So let's have a look here. I've got some stats up here for the opening draw for players versus position as well. So the opening draw, it's a roller coaster, this draw. So round one, the fullback, one of the hardest matchups for him against the Storm. And then the week after, they've got the Tigers, which is actually an easy matchup. And then they've gone back to the Bulldogs, which is a very hard matchup for the fullback as well. So it's an up and down draw for him at the start there, mainly for the fullback position instead of wing position. But
yeah, I actually see that as quite a tough draw.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do like here, though, second rowers, this draw is actually not too bad for second rowers. So that's why I don't mind getting Kelmar in that team. A bit of upside there from Kelmar, because you know what he can do to Alangi, and potentially get a nice little increase in price after round 5. So he has the first round tough matchup, obviously, against the Storm. Then look at these other games. Very low numbers here, meaning that's a lot of points that he can potentially score through that period there from round 2 to round 5. So I like the idea of going the second rower from Parramatta.
Yeah, and Tigers leak to right second rowers quite often. It's a horrible stat that we've carried for the last 2 years. I see the Storm being the gun side this year. I think the Bulldogs' defence is probably one of the better sides in the comp as they were last year, and they've improved. Manly and Dragons. The Dragons are a much improved side, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to last year's stats, to be fair. I think the Tigers, although they'll be better in attack, they'll still be an issue in defence.
Yeah. So looking more detailed, looking at Dylan Brown, you're paying $651,800 for him. So you're paying for a 66.6 average from last year. This is the part that I think is actually quite interesting. And you all kind of understand that his base is one of the highest 5'8" bases you've probably seen because of how many runs he takes. So he tends to get a higher average against those tougher matchups because he has to run the ball a bit harder. So a 63 all-time average against the Storm is a very impressive average for a 5'8". Against Tigers, it drops down a little bit, but I think a lot of the wingers get all the points. A Bulldogs a bit lower there with 53. Manly, very big average against Manly, 71.2, and then the Dragons in round 5, 88.5. So for Dylan Brown, not the worst draw for him. We've got those 2 games. I reckon the toughest matchup for him there is actually the Bulldogs. I think Melbourne, but even then, I think he gets that solid score against them because I think he's that basic player that you can feel safe with. So,
Yeah.
I thought I'd add Zach Lomax in here. You're definitely paying. I reckon you're paying overs for him just with the matchups that he does have. So you're paying for a 79 average from last year, which we all know increased when he went to the wing. So I think that you're paying a bit over. I'd love to watch Lomax at the start of the year, get back into his center position comfortably again, and then see what you can get out of him. But he averages 66.7 against the Storm. Very nice average there. 75 against the Tigers, 65 against the Bulldogs, 76 against Manly, and he's never played the Dragons, obviously, so there's no average there. So that rounds up the average for the first 4 opponents to a 70.95. Not the worst thing, but you're paying for a 79 average. So
yeah, I don't like Lomax, mate, at centre, personally. New club, new position. But, I mean, you know, he bases really strong and his goal kicking in a side that will score more points than what the Dragons did anyway, in previous seasons anyway.
Yeah, so with the next one,
Sorry, can I just say something?
Go for it.
What do you think there's any scenario where if Iongi doesn't work, that Lomax could get moved to fullback?
I don't think they will. I think that young gun, I can't even remember his name. I think it was Papali, Joel Papali. He had a cracker of a game when Iongi went off, and I think he's put his hand up to potentially get that spot if anything fails there. So, and I think that Brett Arthur does like stability. He's been around for a while. Oh, no, it's Riles, isn't it? It's Riles now. So, you never know. You never know, actually, with the new coach. I'm always the Parramatta. I've been Brett Arthur did a fixture with them for a very, very long time. So, I just got caught up.
We don't know much about Riles, do we?
That's
we can
right,
imagine
100%.
he'll be a very Storm Rooster-like kind of coach. You know,
Yeah.
defense will be his main attribute, you know.
Well, one thing that surprised me a little bit on the trial match was Iongi is more of that like Dylan Edwards style fullback where he's a meter eater. He'll eat those meters and just do some hit ups, and which having him at that price, a lot of people are like trying to do the 3 fullback thing. Others are doing the 2 fullback thing, getting him in. I don't think he's gonna break any records, but he's gonna make you money, obviously, because he's that meter. He's gonna have high base, like a Dylan Edwards style base. But what surprised me was that like last pass, that ball playing skills is actually a bit more new to him. So it's like he's been working really hard on that. That no-look pass to get that try on the weekend was beautiful.
And they play a lot more shapes at Parramatta than they did at the Dragons. Like being outside players like Dylan Brown and Moses, they do that shift short ball, that out the back kind of play. And you saw he was the beneficiary of that the other day, even when Moses wasn't there. Beautiful, like I said, a beautiful ball out to the winger. So he's got potential to play those. But I agree with you. He reminds me more of a Kennedy type player through the middle. You know, he doesn't really have the hands of a Tedesco or a Turbo.
In saying that, he still surprised me with those 2 passes. He did pretty nice ones. They got a few try assists, line break assists. So I think he got a pretty decent score after I think he played 34 minutes, something stupid like the first half, and he managed to get like a 60-odd point score or something like that. So very handy. Hopgood paying for a 67 average. I think that's unders. I know the draw here doesn't really click. Last year he was playing injured, managing his minutes because he was a back injury, I believe, from memory. And back injuries are extremely tough to manage. You have to make sure that you're one little step out and you're gone again. So managing those back injuries, I know that from personal experience managing my back injuries in the past, and it's very fidgety. They got to make sure they don't overwork him. So I'm hoping that from all reports I'm hearing, that's all clear now. He's all fully fit again. He can go back to doing those big minutes and getting that massive base with unbelievable potential for attack as well. So I really like Hopgood as a starter.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Hopgood is an absolute super coach gun. His PPM is incredible. The only question mark I have around him is how his minutes will look. New coach, new side. we don't know how he's going to do the rotation. And that's always the $1 million question in Supercoach at the start of the year, the rotation of forwards. And we don't know until we know, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But,
that's the thing with him. That's the thing with him as well. If we look at last year, his minutes may have been affected because of the injury. And now not only that, they're saying he's all fully fit again, but you got to think the new coach, that bench that we've just looked at is a jam packed full of locks. So you got to try and think like what's in place. So I think I had him in the pod list here because I thought he'd be a pod, but I think I would actually put him in the watch list to see how they're going to.
Well, there's actually a lot of second rowers around that price point that we know will play 80 minutes, like Olakawasu, Kaloa Matangi, Katoa, who's a little bit dearer. And then you got a few coming up, like through the Tigers. There's a few sides, like even Connor Watson. There's a lot of value in second row in both top dollar, mids, and cheapies. So Team List Tuesday will be an interesting reshuffle of a lot of second rowers, I reckon.
Yeah, I reckon so. All right, let's move on to Mitchell Moses. Not a fan of this one at all. 628. So you're paying for a 64 average. I think he didn't play very many games last year, so you got a bit of a discount on him there. But losing the kicking duties to Lomax, that's I'd say about a 8 point a game drop on average. Just in that alone, so I don't see that being a viable option. I think you might pick him up a bit cheaper later on if you wanted to through the buy coverage, but I'm probably going to avoid him all year. I think there's better options in the halves to even cover the buy round. So
unless Lomax goes down. Yeah,
Lomax goes down, then he goes up 8 points and average almost straight away. So yeah, 100%.
Or even more than that, possibly. Yeah. But I agree. If Lomax goes down, he's lost money. He could actually be a trade in at some point through the buy rounds. But even if Lomax plays Origin, but Moses could still too.
Yeah, that's it. It'd be pretty hard on Moses to not get selected to Origin, considering what he just did. Like he filled in for the injured Cleary and then wins an Origin. So,
well, I see Cleary and Moses as the halves. That's who I would choose.
Agree. That makes sense to me. But then also kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit hard done by Luai, who actually played really good in those Origin games as well. So I think Moses was better, but Luai was actually pretty good too.
Yeah, to be fair to Luai, he did play really well last year. But, we've had a lot of losses with the Cleary-Luai combination. I just think we need double kickers, and Moses' kicking game and Cleary's kicking game together will just kick them to death. And that's what, that's just my own personal opinion. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. Where we always lose in Origin, from my perspective, is before we even start, is in the selection table. So often Tyrone and I pick a side, and last year was the closest that came to the side I picked. And when they did get that side, it worked.
Definitely. And last, I always chuck in a sneaky little pod in here as well. We know Bailey Simonson can definitely score some tries. He's pretty handy as a try scorer. They've got a pretty tough draw, so I probably wouldn't start off with him, but he might probably trickle around that price point, maybe get around the 400k mark after round 5, get them on a really good matchup or a good run of draw. I reckon Bailey Simonson will score a few tries, and there's a few tons in him if you get like a hat trick or something like that. So I'm to look out for there.
A player I really like in the Eels too, who's got really good base, is Will Penasini. Outside Moses, he finds the try line. I've had Penasini at different intervals, and he might not be a start based on the draw, but he's definitely someone you could look at as the draw gets prettier.
Yeah, and he's like you can have him in there as like a stable player, because I always feel safe having one very solid base player. Like when I did really well that year, I had Bateman when he first came to Canberra, and I had him in the centre wing duel. So I put him in there, and that was my safety net all year, and it ended up being obviously one of my favourite bloody trades ever. But a lot of everyone got him eventually because he was so good. But I started with him, and that was the risk I took. But it was just having that solid, 50 points a game that you're guaranteed to get is always good.
And there's those two, like Dylan Lucas and Burbo, who you can throw in your centre wing this year, who are playing second row. There's also Marzu, and then, of course, the upside players. So, but I really like Penasini. He's in that mould, like that one that got me barred from Facebook. What's his name?
Herbie Farnworth.
Herbie Farnsworth, yeah.
Yeah, I like Herbie I like him a lot. I think he's getting better as the years go on. Like, but he moved to the Dolphins, more like, oh, is he going to be okay? We'll watch and see how he goes. And then he was one of the better centers for Supercoach last year. So,
yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else? Excuse me, just talking a little bit here. Anything else we want to talk about before we move on to the Panthers?
No, just let me have a quick parter through it. I mean, if Brendan Hands was to get 80 minutes, I like him. I think that he'll play 50 and 30. He'll go to Lussick. So, yeah, no. And the other one that you brought up, which I don't hate either, is Ryan Madison. I think Ryan Madison is just a workhorse, and he'll still play 50 minutes, 55 minutes off the bench. I just wonder how Madison and Hopgood are rotated a bit. I'm going to wait and see personally. I want to start. I'm paying for minutes, so I'm going to pay for hook second rows that I know are going to play 80 minutes. But I definitely like the Hopgood shout, bro.
Yes. I'm definitely nervous on some of these players. I think that's what you got to try and be the risk to take on some of these players. Like, even with Kelmar, there's been a lot of times with Kelmar Tuolangi hasn't actually played the full 80. He gets a rest towards the end as well. But in saying that, you're only paying $330 for him, so I feel like that's less of a risk. So.
Well, that bench suggests that could happen.
Yeah.
There is a possibility where you get a 60-60, 40 minute second row. And a lot more coaches are doing that now. I mean, Tyrone and I speak about this all the time, how we would do that. We would rotate our second rowers. We just think it's a strike position. And, we have a big body, fresh coming on, so the $1 million question, like I said earlier, in every game is the rotation of forwards and how it looks at the beginning of the season. And even then, you can't always be certain that they're right because it's weather related as well. It's hot at the beginning of the season and people are still running into their legs. So I'm actually not liking Tuolagi based on that draw. I've watched Tuolagi when he was at the Tigers. I didn't like him then, and I don't really like him now, personally.
I just like him for that
price point.
The draw helps as well. One tough matchup at the start, and the rest of them actually quite.
Yeah, I don't agree with you that that's a good draw, bro. The Bulldogs were one of the best defending sides last year. Manly I have in the top 4 this year, and the Dragons I think will be the most improved side this year. And the Tigers will have a lot more in their arsenal in attack this year. They still will be vulnerable in defence. So I only see one good matchup there personally. And it's on the right side. I'd be more Cartwright inclined than I would be Tuolagi for that matchup. That's just my opinion.
I am liking Cartwright because he's priced at $560 as well. He's a little bit below some of those. I am liking Cartwright, and he has I feel like a safe. Obviously you're paying $200K for extra for it, but he's definitely one. If you're going to get a piece of that second row, he's probably the most likely to pay the full 80, and he's got the extra upside as well.
Yeah, that's right. He's got the upside, bro. He's got really good hands. And like I said, he's playing a lot tougher football, and which means he's got better base, more defence, more tackles. Cartwright's actually been a silent achiever the last couple of years, quite chucking along.
All righty, let's move on to the best team in the comp for the last 5 years or 4 years. It's almost been 5 years now. May as well be. Predicted team. This one pretty much writes itself, in my opinion. Dylan Edwards at fullback. Looks like Casey McLean will get that number 2 spot. Isaac Tumor, number 3. And Paul Alamotti back from, I think he had a broken arm injury. I think he's back now as well. Brian Tyler, number 5. All reports are saying that Blaze Taulani is going to be the number 6 with Nathan Cleary, number 7. Moses Leota, number 8. Mitch Kenny, number 9, with Lindsay Smith, super sub last year. Now he's number 10. Isaiah Papali'i, number 11, with Liam Martin, number 12. Isaiah Yo, Captain Reliable there in number 13. And on the bench will be Jack Cole, Scott Sorensen, Liam Henry, and Luke Garner. I know we've lost a lot of players, mate. This still looks pretty solid.
Yeah, when I look at sides, the first thing I look at is their bench, and where the
Mm.
Penrith have always been the strongest is their bench. But this year they're not. I actually don't like. I mean, they've got two real second rowers there, and Sorensen and Garner coming off the bench, and then Liam Henry through the middle. Like I wonder to myself how that looks. I mean, it rings good for players like Lindsay Smith and not Leota so much, but Lindsay Smith could see big minutes in the middle. I'm not convinced that's the side either, bro. I think there's a world where Cole actually starts, not Talagi. And, I don't know. I think that even Talagi could move into second row and McLean doesn't make the side. I also see a world where, what's his name? Isaiah Papali doesn't start at second row and he starts off the bench, which is what I would do. And I would have Garner or Sorensen as my second rower just because IPAP could play through the middle. And when I look at that team, they're not strong in the middle. They're strong starting in the middle, but when they're coming off the bench, that's where they lose out. Where they've been strong in the past is they've been able to bring players on, Leah Henry, Linu, and take off, the play like James Fisher-Harris. You know what I'm saying? So the rotation doesn't lose a lot, but they do. When they lose their forwards this time, that who comes on doesn't have the same strength. So I actually think IPAP comes off the bench. That's what I would do if I'm the coach, based on the fact of his versatility, being able to play through the lock or playing through the middle. I'm not saying that, that's just my guess.
Yeah, but I will say that Scotty Sorensen has been very versatile in the past by playing a lot in the middle.
And Henry.
And Henry is a middle. He is a middle. So
I
like Henry because Henry kind of like that replacement for Lindsay Smith, who was on the bench last year, and Sorensen, I guess, is the replacement for. I guess he'd be like the Spencer Leniu that we had, but he's not as impactful, I believe, as Spencer Leniu. So I'm not a big fan of having Luke Garner as a 17 either.
Well, I also see in that second row that Liam Martin probably won't play 80 minutes either, right? Which means that there's a chance that Sorensen comes in or Garner comes in to that position and Martin gets rotated through the middle when he comes back on as well. So there's a world where Martin could also play through the middle or IPAP. So, and I mean, we're just giving opinions here, and that's just mine. When I look at that side personally, I would have Martin starting, but I would bring him back through the middle, and IPAP would be on the bench for me. And I actually would have Talagi at 3, and I would have Cole at 6. But I'm not the coach.
I thought Cole was pretty good in the trial. Like he seemed to have a bit more control. I do prefer Cole there. I just put it this year because I think this is what's actually going to happen. I think this is what I think. This is every report. I think this is what's going to happen. I don't think I agree with it. That should happen. I think Blaise Talani is a much better centre/winger. But then I think they're trying to find a spot for Casey, who played quite well last year. You kind of earned that spot, I guess. But you've got to be cutthroat, I guess, if you want to be the 5-time champions in a row. So I think I would put Blaise Talani in the centres or in the wing, replacing Casey McLean, and then I would just start with Jack Cole. I actually don't mind, instead of having Taulagi on the bench to replace Jack Cole, I don't mind having Schneider there. He'd be a really good little impact player that could probably play a little middle role. He's the big body on him as well, so I think Schneider would be a good option to have at 14. And I think you need another big, hard running forward at that 17. I think I would probably put someone a bit big. I don't know. I'd look at someone like I know he's not someone kind of like Maverick Geyer, that big impact player. I don't think he's the right one for it. I think there's other players that can put there instead. There's actually a young fella. I'll try and get his name. Actually, there's a young fella. I think it's Luan Patea. He recently just signed. He's actually pretty solid, good little impact player as well. So
he's a good player. The young guy from Lithgow as well that came in and played is actually not a bad player. Usually plays centre, but they got some good depth. They always have, Penrith. But I personally think that what's his name, Snyder. I really like him, and I think he fits into the structure of Penrith really well defensively. He's a really good defender, front on. But Talagi does sort of match like for like, I guess. I don't know if like for like's the right word, but for a Louis type kind of player, where he's that enigmatic kind of player that steps and does all that kind of jolting around while Cleary does the structure. But I agree with you, Dan. I like Cole better myself. And he's been in that system longer. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So they got their certain set plays. It'll be a lot faster for them to gel. But Panthers don't. They tend to not start the season. They had that crazy few years where they were just winning every game and didn't have a loss for a long time. But the last couple of years they have been starting weak. They've lost their first game. They lost against Melbourne Storm in round 1 last year. They lost against the Brisbane Broncos the year before that. They always take a while to gel with. After losing players, this is normal. You lose a lot of players, which I have done for the last 3 years. You got to gel new partnerships. And they do. They just do it a bit slower. I say by round 4 or 5, they start getting really good and they start looking like they're going to be champions again. I think this year might be a bit longer because they've got some big names out, some big boppers. They've got Fisher Harris. I'm not too fussed on losing Taruva because we've got some like great centers coming through. But Luai and Fisher Harris, those two guys, that's hard. That's big shoes to fill. So
I actually think Taruva does a lot better job than people realise too. I mean, his carries back are really good, but I'm a really big fan of Alamotti. I think he's an incredible rugby league player, and I expect things from this season. Let's just talk about a couple of things here. So Nathan Cleary, coming back from an injury, the first 5 games are relatively tough from my perspective, and they're playing the first game on a smaller field against Cronulla Sharks, who are a good defensive side. I can see a lot of reasons not to start Cleary.
Yeah, and here's some of them right now. So looking at the positional draw strength for the halfback for the Panthers, their first game up against the Sharks, 10, very big number there. 12, bigger number against the Roosters, which might be a bit lower this year, I think, against the Roosters. But then you're looking at round 3 against the Storm. Like, that's another tough one. And then you got South and Cowboys, which starts to lighten up for him. So I like the idea, actually, where my plan was to have my halfback until round 5 and then bring in Cleary for round 5. That was my little plan because then Cleary tends to go on a run. I don't mind doing that just to build up a bit of cash, but I think Cleary needs to get some time going because if they are saying he should be right for round 1, he should be right. To me, that's like, are they rushing him back again? Is he going to get frigging left out, play 10 more games? It's scary for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of question marks, and the fact that he hasn't played any games, like leading up to the first game in itself is a concern. But look, Cleary's Cleary, and he's a super coach gun, and and against the best sides, he still scores well. He just finds points. But I do worry about whether the foundation will be laid for him the way it has been in the past, whether they get that same impact, even the same backs. They're slowly losing. I mean, if you was to take the last 3 years players that have left the Panthers and put a side together with them alone, that's a premiership winning side. It's a pretty good team. I really worry when I look at their forwards. Like I said, when I look at a good football team, I look at the bench. And that's where the Penrith have always been really strong. When their forwards come off, the ones that come on are equally as good. When you've got players like Linu and that coming on the field, who are great impact forwards. But you've lost Spencer Linu, you've lost James Fisher-Harris, you've lost a bit of grunt up the middle, and that's where I think you really struggle. I really worry for that side this year. I think they'll take a bit of time to build combinations with the new halves. There's a lot of question marks around it. And only player of interest for me in there are 3, which is Isaiah Papali, based on points per dollar. And then even then, I question whether he gets the minutes or plays even starts. I think that Toho, outside Cleary, might see more ball if he plays on the right. It would be an interesting one. And obviously the other one would be the other winger, Casey McLean. I mean, if you want to pay up, Yo's the other one. I mean, he's consistent every week, but he doesn't have the ceiling of some other second rowers, but he certainly has the consistency and always ends up being one of the top scoring second rowers over a season.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like, if you wanted to set him together team and you didn't want to do any trades all year, he'd be a lock straight away. He'd be that guy that going to get those points.
Sorry, I do apologise. I mean, if Talagi or Cole gets the 6th spot, either one, they could be an interesting player. I like both, and even Snyder, whoever gets that spot, but I don't like them starting. I really want to watch the Panthers. They're a wait and see for me. We know they're a good side. We know they'll be top 4. but will they start off that way? That's the question.
No, I'm not very confident that we tend to start a bit weaker. Like, I'm obviously follow them quite. Like, I follow them for 39 years now, mate, because that's how old I am. So
we're looking at the draw. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then, bro. The Sharks are a great defensive side. The Roosters are known as a defensive side, but I have some real big question marks around that Roosters team. So there could be opportunities for points in that particular game. The Storm are the gun side for me this year. So Sharks and Storm are two definitely hard ones. The Souths and Cowboys, I think they'll be better improved, but they still leak in defence, especially in the second halves. They tend to drop off in the last 30. So, I agree with you. Picking up someone around, having a look at him on 1, 2, and 3, and then round 3 or 4, you can start picking up some Panthers if you see something you like.
Yeah, I reckon so. And I think there's I don't like. I get that, like, player wise with points potential, Taulagi, if he gets a spot, but there's no way you'd pay $5.60 for him.
No, that's like I said. I'm not starting any Panthers other than iPad maybe.
Yeah, but I think but like, I remember he played 5'8" for Parramatta one game last year against the Tigers. I remember that, and I remember there was a big thing about it because it was Taulagi and what's your boy Galvin? They were like half partners in the schoolboys team. And it was like a big matchup they were talking about, and Galvin just owned him the whole game.
Yeah.
So Blaze had a shocker.
I'm not starting him at my 5'8" if I'm the coach. I really not. I would be starting Cole. I just think that Cole's been in the system longer. He plays a game that's more conducive, I think, towards Cleary, and he's proven himself in that side. Taulagi hasn't, and I don't think he proved himself in Parramatta. Personally, there were some defensive reads that I thought were a bit out there. He is an exciting player, and he's definitely a player of the future. Yeah. But whether that translates to a super coach player is the $1 million question there.
Yeah. So I got some numbers here. So 82.9 average for Cleary last year, giving him a 11,500 price point. Against the Sharks, like, he average is good against most teams. Like, it's 83 against the Sharks, 79 against the Roosters, 58 against the Storm. That's pretty damn good for a bloody Storm halfback against the Storm team. 75 versus South and 83 versus the Cowboys. So 82 average you're paying for. You're going to get a 79 average approximately. But the kicker here is, I actually did some stats the other day when I was doing the half podcast with the boys. And his first 2 games, he usually averages about 60, not even. There was one year where he started off with a 43 and then got a 60, and then the week after he comes out and smashes a 150, and then the week after that 121. But those first 2 games are just him getting used to playing again. I was like, especially when he hasn't been playing, he's been injured. Shoulder surgery. They're all saying it's a miracle. It's a miracle that he's being healed this fast. And to me, I'm not convinced, mate. I'd rather they rest him, give Blaze and Cole the positions, or Snyder and Cole the positions temporarily. Let him rest because they keep rushing him back, and then he played like fuck all last year, and we still won. Don't get me wrong, but we shouldn't have. I don't think we should have won that. I think Panthers have that mentality in finals footy to win, and that's the only reason we won.
They remind me of the Broncos back in the 80s, where they could be losing a game, but they just seem to have that belief in themselves and they find it at the end. I just don't know if they're going to have it this year. I really see some weak points in that side, and I think it's the foundation, the forwards, for me, are not as good as they have been.
I think it's going to be defensive issues. I can see, but you said it yourself. If we do have Blaze, if Blaze is that player that is in the halves there with Cleary, Blaze, we all saw him make some pretty bad defensive errors last year. If he's in the middle, that's exposing our middle forwards to get the line's broken. So I just don't see. I feel like that defensively we're going to be letting more points in this year. So I don't think we'll be the worst matchup this year if someone's playing against us. So.
The one good thing in Talagi's favour is he has 2 really good second rowers. So IPAP will likely be on his side. and he is a good defender. Although, you know, I think we'll see a different version of IPAP this year than we saw last year at the Tigers. He looked it was just a different beast than what we saw at Parramatta, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He's changed like back and forth. When he was at the Warriors, he was average.
Yeah, he was average at the Warriors
too. He went to
too.
the Parramatta Eels, and he was one of the best second rowers in the game. And then the
Yeah.
Tigers, and then became average again. And now he's going to the Panthers. Did that change again? Like I think it might. So, all right. Dylan Edwards. Well, I think Dylan Edwards had to do more work last year with Cleary out the most of the year. I think he had to do more work, which he's overpriced in my opinion by a long way. I think if I'm going to pay $8.39 for a fullback, I'll be looking at the other ones that are below that. I'd like what Puppy is, what 650,000 little Puppy Papanaz. I'd pay for that a non-kicking fullback. Then I'd rather than pay for Dylan Edwards there. Dylan Edwards will get you the solid scores every week because he's got those meters that he makes every week. But it's not. I don't think he's going to go. I think he's going to average about 60, and you're paying for an 85 average.
Well, you got 3 goal-kicking fullbacks to start with that are priced cheaper than that. With Latrell Mitchell, Drinkwater, and Ponga. And then you got your Turbos, your Tedescos. You know, I'd pick any one of those before I'd pick this guy in that side. And
you got your Walsh as well, another one that you could get. Like it's something above him.
And he could be an interesting pod, but we'll come to that when we talk about that. But just I really rate the Broncos this year, bro.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some. I think that because the Broncos went from like green finalists to like out of the 8 in 1 year, I can see them switching back to what that form was against that green, and then when they went to the grand final, I think they're going to be solid as long as they got some. But even this year, they've got more depth in those halves now. Like if Aero goes down, they've got some players that can come in there. Rogers has now had a bit more time. They've got Kobe Black, who they might get in there, who's a young gun that'll come in there and replace Aero if needed. They've got Ben Hunt. They've now got Ben Hunt as well. And they've got Ezra.
They've actually got 7 halves in their top 30.
Yep. So there's so much more depth. It shows you, if you had to look at a team and see who has the most halves in their top 30, and you had to pick which one it was without knowing who it was. If the team had 7 halves, you'd know, that's Broncos with A-Ray. Their coverage.
That's right. And some good ones there. I mean, you know, Ezra Mann, Ben Hunt, not even the first 2 up, you know, like Ben Hunt will probably play through the 9. You know, and even Walters played some good football. If you watched the game that he played today, he was relentless, actually.
I think Walters is a better half than he is in hooker, I think. Personally.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so Brian Toto, definitely not going to start with him, but I do like him towards, I'm going to say from around 8 onwards, I might target him. Just to get a bit more. I reckon it goes down a little in price, but you're paying for a 70 average. Against the Sharks, the average is 59, 53 against the Roosters, 57 against the Storm, 54 against the South, and then it goes up to like 79.7 against the Cowboys. So I think, he's one of those guys. If he gets those 50 scores for the first 4 rounds, his price is going to drop dramatically in round 5, 6, and keep going down. So I think. Which is great news for us because we're not starting him. We all want him in the end of the year because he's that basey try-scoring winger that we all want. So I actually like that draw from our Supercoach perspective to get him in later.
And I do see him getting more tries this season with Cleary on that side, meaning because Luai was a dominant half. I think Cleary will take a lot more ball, and that can only do well for that right side with whoever's plays that right side, like Liam Martin, Toho, and Targo, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a very small sample size here because he didn't play too many games, only a rookie. But Casey McLean hasn't played against the Sharks, Roosters, but he got an 87 against the Storm and 41 against the Cowboys. So I like this Casey McLean kid. He's got a lot of flair, a bit exciting. Kind of like how he reminds me a little bit of Critter, that exciting flair, the game breaker that you can get the ball to towards the end. Obviously very young and not Critter level yet, but I think he'd be definitely. He's reminds me of when Critter first started, so I like him as an option.
They're good footballers, aren't they? The McLeans, Jesse as well. I like them.
Both solid.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and last but not least, we've got I don't like this little read. This is the overall all-time average against players, and there was a period there where Yo wasn't the gun that he is today. So you're paying for a 74 average, and from last I looked, I'm gonna have a look. I got some pictures up here that I've saved.
I actually like Isaiah Yo the more I think about it, bro. I think that he'll play a much more pivotal role playing like a ball playing lock this year. So you might, he'll be the connection in the middle. And I think that they'll be doing a lot more defending, which means he'll make a lot more base. The more I think about Yo, bro, I don't hate it. As if you want that one consistent player in your team, like you said, and you had, I don't disagree with you.
So I'm looking here. This picture that you've got up here doesn't really show the full story. So I'm going to just go against his first 3-round opponents. So we got against the Sharks. His last game he got 60 points. Again, the game before that he got 78 points. Very, very. These are the most recent times he's played them. Against the Roosters, he got his last game in round 4 in 2024. He 72 points. In round 23, he played him before that, 87 points. And the one before that, he got it 71 points against him. So 70, he's not getting below 60 anytime soon.
Yeah, he's very consistent.
Against Melbourne, he got 86 points the last time he played him in round 24 last year. And even in that round 1 game, this is the big one because we're talking about early games right now. Panthers normally start pretty weak. In that round 1 game he played against Melbourne and lost, he got 67 points still. That is bloody safe, in my opinion. So I had him in my team, and I was like trying to spread my love around with my money to get 3 fullbacks, and I got rid of him. But I really like him so much. I had him in my team as a stable for the rest of the year, and I didn't need to worry about trading him out again. So, I'm talking every time we do a podcast, Glenn. I always talk myself into a trade, and I change my team every game every time afterwards. So.
I spent so much time last week talking you out of Yo, and then I spent this week trying to talk you back into him. But I look, based on our conversation earlier and the value in second row and the fact that there are 80 minutes, I wouldn't be starting him either. But the argument is, if you're looking for a second rower that is consistent, that's a set and forget, Yo's definitely that player. He will get you 65, 70 every game. But he doesn't have the ceiling that some others can have. That can score you the same kind of points for less, and
that's the thing. I replaced him. I mentioned before I had to get a third fullback, but I already had that third fullback. So what I did was I got Yo out so I could upgrade. I think I had Burbo in there. I upgraded Burbo to Garrick. So to me, getting a cheap second rower to get Garrick in, who has a bigger upside, was the reason for it, and I think that's probably me.
I've spent a bit of money in second row, as you know, and one of them I have is Eli Katoa. And there is a world where Eli Katoa goes down to one of those mids if I think if it looks good enough, and then that could bring me back to a third fullback. It's bring on Team List Tuesday. It's exciting. It's always exciting. And I can't wait for the rugby league season to start. Supercoach aside, mate, just to have football back. I just wish it didn't accompany winter.
Yeah, I think get the fire pit going. It's just sit in front of the fire pit and warming it up and stuff like that. Meat pie. Oh, I love it. Anything else, Glenn, we want to talk about before we wrap things up tonight?
No. I guess we're done for the night, brother. I want to get and watch this game with the Roosters. I think the Dragons side will be a much improved team this year, and I'm interested to see how they play. And so I've recorded that. And I'll be getting into watching that after the game. I'm looking forward to talking about some of the things we got coming up. I think the Tigers and a few others got coming up, the Dragons as well. What do we got next week? Tigers, Dragons, and...
We've got our last 2 team review podcasts.
Warriors still to go.
Yeah, so the last 2 team podcasts are going to be... I've got the schedule right
Roosters.
Here. So doing South Dragons and the Roosters on Tuesday night, and then on Saturday we're going to do New Zealand Tigers and the Knights, and that's all the teams done. So and then after that Saturday, our Tuesday is our first TLT podcast, which is exciting.
Well, I'm going to do a team reveal, but we won't tonight. But I'll do it next pod if you want. But I'm not doing it after Team List Tuesday, so I'm happy to let people have a look at my side early. But after Team List Tuesday, I'm not telling you my actual side. I just won't do that. But
that's a bit rude. That I think that's a bit rude. Where you're like, I'm gonna throw you this dummy team.
No, it's not my dummy team. That team I'm actually really happy with. I just know come Teamless Tuesday, I'll spot things.
Yeah.
You know, I want to win Supercoach, you know, like everyone else. And I'm happy to show them the team after round one. What I've done is what I often do is I put it up on our page. Yeah, but I'll put up my team. That's what I'll do. I'll put it up in our podcast on our page. What I've got now, and obviously it will change around come Teamless Tuesday, like every other person in Supercoach will do. But it's my genuine team. It's
one of the things that I'm not a big fan of is that round one being separated, because I have a habit of seeing shots and I bring in all the players just so I can, you know what I mean? And I'm like, it just messes my plans up. I was trying to try to ignore, because I don't want to watch the first Sunday of footy and miss all my players. So I don't have like no players in those games.
well,
I hold back.
Yeah, I mean, Sharks have got a lot of value in it, but I don't know if Penrith do. And what's the other two teams? Broncos and
I know Warriors and Raiders.
Warriors and Raiders, sorry. Yeah, Warriors and Raiders. Yeah, well, there's a bit of value in those sides. Definitely in the Warriors. I really like some plays in the Warriors, and we'll talk about that. And if Horse gets the role, he points per dollar makes sense as well. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing the other teams, mate. And I'll post up my team on the page tomorrow morning, guys. I'm just going to have a look and pick it apart if you like. It's a couple of placeholders, but for the most of it, I like the side I've put up.
I don't know. I want to share mine because mine is like, you know, I like it, but it is freaking out there, right? Like, I've got some crazy. I like to think outside the box and do some crazy things, and then I'll probably revert back to.
But it matches you, bro. You're out there.
I tend to do those crazy ideas first, and then I always lose my ball size and shrink down, and then I go back to being a normal.
Yeah, I'm going back to the strategy that had me top 1,000 for 7 or whatever it was years in a row. And, you know, that year, like I said, I had that year where I was top 20 for all the season. And then I had those two last rounds that messed me up, where I made those two really bizarre decisions. But I didn't want to just finish top 20. I wanted to win or get in the top 10 or not, you know. So I took risks, you know, because I mean, yeah, we can all brag. I came 20th or 25th or 30th or whatever, you know, 76, I think I ended up coming. But it's like we want to get like Tyrone. He's been ninth twice, you know, like we want to get in that top 10 at least, preferably first.
Yeah, when I got 15th in 2020, mate, I was like, I may as well have got 1,011th because that's the same prize I got.
That's right. That's right, bro. That's exactly right. I mean, it's nice, you know. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about coming in the top, like even 50 or 100, is that if you're in a lot of competitions, you're likely going to be up the top end of that, which means if you're in cash comps head-to-heads. Oh, by the way, Bro said to mention most of the cash comps are nearly full. They're doing really well, but there's still room in all of them. So if you want to jump in, there's $50 cash comps, $25 head-to-heads, there's $100 ones, and it's the biggest cash comp going around, in, as you know, that I'm aware of anyway, and everyone's always been paid. And as you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a real issue with that in the game. But that's why we don't allow in our Tragics chat or on our Tragics page for people to advertise cash comps, because we want to be able to confirm that the people are being paid that are being advertised in our comps.
Yeah, 100%. Because we have been. A lot of people might think we're being dicks. We're not. We're just making sure that we're being our members in our group are being safe. Because
that's right.
There's so many nightmares that I've seen around there, and it's just we aren't being dicks. We're just doing what we think is the right thing. If you're going to post a cash comp somewhere else, go do it. You know what? I had joined them in the past, and I'm nothing against them. I just don't want to. It's at my own risk, and that's the thing. We don't want to do that. We can't confirm that we get paid. So. Yeah. We've
had a few people run off with money, mate. I mean, remember we were a part of a page 10 years ago, whatever it was, 5 years, I don't know how long ago it was, and a guy took off with everybody's cash, you know, and then we've had a few reports of people saying, oh, such and such just ran with all the money, you know, and I don't want that to happen in Tragics. We want to protect our members.
That's it. All right, guys, I think that wraps everything up for this week. We'll be back on Tuesday to discuss 3 more teams, so pretty exciting, man.
Yep.
Anything else, Glenn, before we head off?
No, mate. Have a good night, everyone. Don't forget to jump in our cash league, man. $500 first prize. That is a fair bit of coin for nothing, you know. And there's other. Well,
I'll get that league code up for everyone before we go. Just one last time. So the league code is 208753. Great comp jumping in.
Big guys. And tell your friends.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Peace. We'll see you all on Tuesday. Thanks again, Glenn.
Night, brother.